Welcome to the Motivated Martial Arts Podcast. Your hosts, Jackson White and Gavin Cook, have been friends and Taekwondo training partners for over 40 years. This podcast will bring you a mixture of their life stories, martial arts, and business experiences to motivate you in life and throughout your martial arts journey. Adding in a mixture of inspiring interviews and some of the best traditional martial artists around today. So over to your hosts, the Motivated Martial Artists.
Welcome to the Motivated Martial Artists Podcast with me, Gavin Cook.
And me, Jackson White.
And this evening we've got Andrew Tombling on the show. Andrew's one of our fellow TAGB black belt instructors who's been in the game a long time. So super excited to get you on, Andy. Good to see you.
Okay. Yeah, it's an honor being here, guys. Okay, and amongst all these wonderful people that you've been doing your podcasts with, where I fit in, be interesting to see, but it's a privilege being here.
Right at the top with every other great martial artist, Andy. That's the great thing with martial arts. You know, the level is, once you're there, you know, you're a participant, you're a practitioner, you sit alongside each and every one of those in your own right. So that, like Gavin said, it's great to get you on this evening. You've been in our back pocket for a long time to approach it and get onto the program, because one of the things that certainly I recognise, being an ex-competitor, I've seen you on the square for years. You know, a lot of the time you're floating around, marshalling the rest of the officials at competitions. I know you run your own schools, but a lot of the time I've seen you in the centre there refereeing. So I really wanted just to get to understand your backstory, how you got into martial arts, and eventually, you know, how you progressed into martial arts being a full-time. I suppose it's a full-time part of your life now. So if you can give us a bit of backstory and start us off at the very beginning.
Wow. Okay. So started Taekwondo back in 1982. Had no idea what it was. We had friends doing judo, friends doing karate, but started off, I lived in Chippenham in Wiltshire. And the opportunity, lovely part of the world. I'm not from here, but this is where we've ended up staying. This is where we end up, our home is. But started originally a WTF club in Bristol. So took that up, was generally a sporty kid, football, you name it, I used to do it. But this was amazing. This just grabbed my attention, grabbed my imagination, and they just couldn't get enough of it. Every opportunity, it was just about training, just having a go. And there was no Taekwondo clubs around. Okay, so we had to travel to Bristol. Okay, and I was a kid at the time, so we used to borrow cars, bikes, anything. So it was just get there and at all costs. What time we finished, we didn't care. My family were in the armed forces, so we ended up moving away. But I still used to get on the bike, get to the train station, get the train to Chippenham, get off the train, get in a car, go to Bristol, finish training, come back to Chippenham, get to the train station, and 99% of the time, the last train had gone, and I'd end up catching the mail train, shoving my bike on the mail sacks at the back, and getting the train back to Didcot, where we ended up living for a period of time.
Obviously, you bought a ticket.
Oh yes, it was a ticket. yes, and if your mail was late back in 1982, I do apologise. You know, but it was all new. It was all just so exciting. As you said, I'm an official. I referee. That's what I do. I really have never been into competing. I'm not saying I haven't competed. Okay, I have competed, not very successfully. I think the main thing that I remember about competing was, and I recall this, I had my nose put across my face, which is obviously very unfortunate, by a good friend of both of yours, Mr. Mikey Lambert.
Okay,
you know, and
he was good at that. He was very good at that.
No, this doesn't seem like a good idea for me. I think I like the idea of being in the middle and controlling the fight, and I think that's where it's sort of, for me, I had a forte of being a good official, being a good organizer of an event, of being able to teach. Mm-hmm. And that's why I do what I do now. I'm an engineer by trade. That's what I was. So I was an electrical engineer, but Taekwondo took over my life and obviously my family's life as well.
So let's just take a couple of steps back. So just talk us about those first lessons. What the feeling of walking into the gym. What do you remember about those first lessons?
Very little. All I remember, it was hard. It was crazy hard. And being a young kid, starting it was sort of, you didn't care it was hard because you just loved the physical aspect of it.
I was going to ask, was that the physically hard or the mentally hard?
Physically.
Okay.
I started with the WTF. It was a WTF club at the time, and it was all about sparring. It was about sparring, pad drills, that sort of thing. It was about cardio. The WTF patterns, I still remember them now. I still get WTF guys that come to me and I'm still doing the WTF patterns, but the syllabus is back then, from what I remember, it wasn't about that. It was just about coming out of it. And if you weren't drenched in sweat, it was not a good lesson.
Yeah, get to a black belt. Get to a black belt as quick as you can so you can compete and get into the Olympics. Or that's what it's all geared for, wasn't it? Really well.
Yes, so yeah. My journey there was. I will honestly say that it was an amazing time. It was an amazing foundation for me. But it was like the sort of the bottom of that iceberg until I met Bristol Academy, met Master Jew. I mean, Master Jew came to one of my coloured belt gradings and sat in the back. And he came to actually two of my colour belt gradings and sat at the back. And, obviously felt sorry for me, took me under his wing. And, obviously it started from there. But it was just hard. It was just hard. And, it was good fun.
Okay. So can you remember who your instructor was at the time?
Yeah, it was the Davis twins.
Okay.
Andy and Chris Davis, I used to start training with up in Bristol. They were the people I used to train with. And again, it wasn't too long before we went over to Mr. Dew at the academy. He welcomed a few of us in. We used to train at the back of his class at the academy.
What was your catalyst for moving over, Andy? What was the one thing that made you think, okay, I want to have a change of scenery?
Do you know what? I don't even remember. I don't really remember what made it change over. There was nothing wrong with where we were. It's just, I think, at the time it was like there was one club, and you have to travel to Bristol, and then there was more open to us. And there wasn't just 6 in the club, 7 in the club. You turned up at training at the academy and there was 25 in the club. Okay. But that was in that lesson. And the lesson before there was this big family. And I think that's one of the key things that I found over the years, nearly 40 years for me, my 39th year, is the fact that it's been about family. You go to anything. It's like you guys, seeing you on here. Do I miss you? Yeah, I miss all these people that we see maybe once or twice a year, but there's this family element, So it just felt like you belonged at the academy.
And that's one thing the TAGB have really mastered, haven't they? That family feel in part of their association. You can go to any club anywhere across the UK and train with somebody, and all of a sudden you're open with welcome arms. And it's like you say, it's just one huge family. And I think it's quite difficult now, with the COVID situation. Obviously, it's another thing that you miss, isn't it? It's like another part of your family that you can't get to see, and you can't get to punch them in the face.
Well, there is that. Yes, there is that. But one thing I will say is what's happening now, it's actually opened us up an awful lot more, because none of us would sit there and go, actually, I'm doing a Zoom lesson. Do you fancy coming in? I mean, Jackie's just put out, as in my Jackie, not you, put out, we do a black belt training session. We just fire out, open invitation. This is what we do. Boom. Everybody from the Southwest wants to come in and train with Jackie and me. Why? Because it's what we're doing, but it's that connection. That connection is there, and I think that's, for me, that's what it's always been.
Okay, no, that's good. So talk us through transitioning from WTF to ITF. Did you have to go back and restart the grades, or did you jump in at a particular level?
Well, when I originally changed over, I was eligible or due to grade at that time. So my time was reset. I had to relearn everything.
Right.
I had to go back and I didn't have to regrade. I had to relearn everything. And what we had then is we had back then young Mr. Mark Ogborn. Okay,
yeah.
Remember Oggy used to come with us, and for 6 months he came and he taught us. He said, "Here we go. This is what we're doing." Boom. And he came back and he basically retaught us everything so that we could stand in front of back then Healy Cho.
Yes, yeah.
Back in the day, and basically take a TAGB grading.
Okay, and was that your black belt grading you took then?
No, that was my second dan. That was
okay,
my second
right.
dan.
So you're already a first dan in WTF.
I'd already attained a first degree black belt with what was back then the BTCB, the British Taekwondo Control Board,
right, okay.
which was the sort of the governing body for the Olympic style back then, which was it was like a cattle market.
Right. Okay.
It was there was hundreds of people grading. I mean, the standard was great. It was great, but you were given a number, and then they called your number out if you passed.
Right. Okay.
But you're sitting there and you're like that. You're scared to death, and you're going 1, 5, 6, 7, and then they miss this big chunk out, and you go, "Oh God."
Then I realise they just can't read off a list properly.
Yeah,
you got yeah. So and it was back in the day of sort of Taekwondo being selected as an Olympic sport.
Yeah.
So it was sort of new. It was cracking. So
how different was the black belt grading in WT or WTF as it was then to your second dan TAGB grading?
TAGB was definitely harder. Definitely. Mentally and physically, because obviously the syllabus. Okay, there is a syllabus. As fact, back then, again, I'm not liking it to now because I don't know. But back then, the syllabus was quite simple but physically hard. Being able to perform all your patterns and everything with the TAGB, it was mentally hard. Being able to go through them, and we all know you get your students to stand in front, do dang gun. No, don't turn the other way. No, this, and the list goes on. So mentally and physically, the TAGB grading was much harder.
It's funny, isn't it? Because I know it's when you look at other styles, and sometimes you speak to people and they say, I'm about to do my black belt grading, and it lasted like 10 hours. Was in the hall for 10 hours, and I'm thinking, geez, well, when you look at the black belt gradings with the TAGB, and it's sort of your section, if you like, is over within about half an hour, and you say that to people, and they look at you as if you think half an hour. But I'll tell you what, that is one hard half an hour. When you go through it, you've never felt anything like it because everything is so fast, isn't it? It's on you, bam, bam, bam. If you don't know, you don't know at that point. It has to be instinct by the time you get to that point, doesn't it?
Well, it is, especially being unfit like yourself, Gavin. It can be almost traumatizing, can't it?
Shut it. We're in lockdown, mate.
One thing that I would say about that is the fact that it's the preparation sessions. So even though someone else is going to say, "Oh, it was a 10-hour grading," what we've had is this weekend it's been 2 hours here. Next weekend it's another 2 hours there. This one is a 2 hours there. Then there's a pre-grading. Then there's and then the list goes on. Obviously, I'm involved in the black belt grading process at the academy, and the fact that the administration at the back. So when you know what goes on there, and as you know, Jackie, my wife Jackie does calling out in the black belt gradings. And knowing what she has to put them through, these people are welcome to 10 hours grading. I don't know what they do in 10 hours, but
oh yeah, well most of it's sat around, isn't it? It's like the old badly run competitions that you used to go to, and you used to get there at 9 o'clock and put your name down, and you get to fight in the final at 11:30 in the evening.
If you're lucky, it's normally 1 o'clock in the morning.
Yeah, and you've been sat around all day, and that's just how things were.
Well, that's what our tournaments were like in the WTF. It was like, there was 200 competitors, and again, this is going back historically. I don't know what they're like now, but they were. It was a drawn out event for 200 competitors, and they'd call the competitor and they'd give them 5 minutes to get to the area, and he was like, "What?"
Yeah. We see that type of event still, don't we, Andy, on overseas competitions?
Well, that's it. I can't remember the last time I actually went on an overseas one. I didn't go to the Croatia one. One of the few that we missed. But yes, but when you get with a TAGB competition, and even if you go to a local, you get 500 competitors, and we're done by 2:30. Yeah, it's great.
Unthinkable back in those days, back in the early 80s and stuff, wasn't it?
That's it. Yeah, very much so. Very much so.
Okay, so you got your second down. When did you decide that you wanted to get into the officiating side of competitions?
Well, that was real quick. That was really, really quick. I mean, as soon as I came across to the TAGB, I was fired across onto an instructor's course. I did the officials course. I was like, a course? What is that? What do you do there? What? Because we didn't do them. We just didn't do them. So as soon as I came across, Master Jew put paperwork in front of me. It was all about, let's get you on an instructor's course. Let's get you on an officials course. And it was just straight away. So every competition that came up, I was there, either irrelevant what it was, whether I was corner judging on the table, it was straight in. Okay. And again, like I said, I'm not competitive. I've done competitions. I've done the locals. I've done a couple of nationals and stuff like that, but it was not for me. Okay. I could coach it. I could teach a student to be the best in the world, which I have done on many an occasion, but it's something that I knew that I could do really well, control two fighters to make sure the outcome was the correct outcome and it was a safe environment for them to compete. Okay,
yes. I'm interested to delve in a little bit more into your mindset around officiating, and really get your viewpoint from that referee, but also from an official's perspective as well. So when you're in the centre there, what are you looking for from the fighters?
Safety. Safety first. Okay, then everything about that area and what happens on that area is ultimately my responsibility. Now, obviously, if I take myself out of being an area manager, that wonderful elusive red shirt that we've now got wandering around. So if you just put me as the senior referee in the area, everything that goes on there is my responsibility. And if I don't take that seriously, then ultimately PD, Ron, okay, they're not going to say, look, Andy, can you go and do that area again? Okay, I'm going to be out. I'm going to be put to the bottom of the list, and nobody's going to want to choose me. But ultimately, I want people to come off that area. The correct decision to be given, that's the first one. Okay, but secondly is that I have refereed them, and they are 100% safe. You know, some officials, okay, through experience or whatever, may let the contact levels go. I'm really sort of heavy on that contact level. It's about scoring the point. That's what it is, score the point. And I remember so many years ago, one particular fighter, he would come in and we're talking world class. And they'd come in there and they'd blitz through and I'd stop. And after the fight, he said, why are you stopping me? And I said, because you're going to hurt him. And that was my concern. You were winning. You were winning the fight, but the guy was running backwards out of the area, but I'd stop you so that you'd stop punching and we'd reset the fight. You were winning. Yeah. So my concern was completely for the safety of that. And that still continues to be that now. Now I'm a red shirt, I'm educating, I'm trying to teach the next stage of officials. I will promote that every time. Make sure you look for the safety of the two competitors.
I think it's absolutely correct. You know what you're saying as well. I mean, I know certainly as an instructor, I always say to my students, "As look, guys, you need to get yourself into a competition. It's the only way you're ever going to get to feel that adrenaline dump that you get when being attacked, but albeit it's going to be in a safe environment, and a controlled environment, yeah. And I think as long as you can sort of say to them that you've got a referee. The referee's going to make sure that you're not going to get hurt. Okay, you could get the old punch as you did off Mikey Lambert and get your nose busted, but that's pretty much the worst thing that happen.
What you don't know is I didn't know he broke my nose until 25 years later, because I went to I said, look, I'm having problems. He said, yeah, you got a broken nose. I'm going, when did I get a broken nose? I had no idea.
And a bit of concussion by the sounds of it as well.
But yeah. Well, if I doubt Mikey remembers fighting me. The amount of people Mikey Lambert fought, I was cannon fodder. That's what I would have been in that tournament. And that was in Swindon. The English Championships in Swindon, of all places.
Yeah, and the worst thing, Andy was a black belt and he was a yellow belt.
You're not wrong there, Gavin. I'm telling you, you're not wrong.
Hey, just going back to the refereeing side, just talk to us about some of the things that you look for when you're reffing. If you're looking to protect a competitor, what sort of things are going through your head? What are you looking for?
Well, firstly, it's a privilege to actually stand in the middle. First of all, it really is to get your name called out. And I suppose it's like being picked for a squad or something like that. But when you get called to take on an area and you get given, it's irrelevant. I don't care what division I end up officiating. That's not really the thing. Sitting there going, oh look, I've got black belt heavyweights. I leave that to my wife. My wife will actually go.
It's the yellow belt heavyweights are the ones that you got. Well, yeah,
well,
exactly.
that one. Thank God they only do point stops. So there you go. That's the best thing. It's more or less making sure that these fighters are executing clean techniques. Obviously, we can't make them do that. We can't say, look, you need to do that technique better. You can't do this. But an awful lot of people, when they come into the sparring element, that potentially they're still learning. They're not sparring to the highest of levels straight away. So it's just being careful on how they're executing the techniques, especially a lot of these youngsters where they may be throwing their techniques, as I normally say, punching from the car park.
Yeah.
You can see it coming through the bleachers, you can see it coming across the other area, and there it's made contact. And straight away, we just put that to bed straight away. Look, excessive contact, and we try and make sure that it's kept consistent. So how you referee on one division, it's consistent with the next division, and there is no difference. Irrelevant whether I'm refereeing black belts or I'm refereeing yellow belts. The safety is paramount, irrelevant of what grade, whether it's point stop or whether these two fighters are fighting to get in the England team. I care not. I don't care, because their safety is the most important part.
Sure. And what would you say your biggest gripe was with competitors? How can they help improve their performance on the square, or make your job easier?
It won't.
No?
Put it this way, it is understanding the words contact, but you're a competitor yourself. You know what I mean? You get in there, and the idea is that if someone wants to be the champion, they're going to step up. And I was always, right from the word go, is that I even teach it myself, and they'll say, look, test the referee. See how far you can push the referee. See what level of contact you can take it before the referee says, hey, no more of that. So I nipped that straight in the bud. So straight away.
I will concur there, because every time I saw you on my square, I thought, oh God, I've got to change my fight game.
Yeah, well,
I better stop those spinning back fists.
They're perfectly legal as long as they're sighted, Gavin. You should know that.
Unfortunately, yeah, it was the case. And like I said, a lot of you guys, you'll come onto the area and you'll have a fight plan. And maybe someone like me, and I mean, I could give you a list of people who are maybe worse than me on watching that contact. And again, I keep referring back to my wife on the officiating, and straight away nip it straight in the bud so that the competitor knows who is controlling the fight, because there's nothing worse than the fighter thinking that they are controlling the fight.
Yeah. No, I think certainly from a fighter's perspective, and as you well know, I've moved into the officiating side now. I've retired, but from the mindset from a fighter, it was always test the referee, find out what you can get away with, and work with. It's no different to a football match or even a rugby match. Find out the boundaries that the referee is going to set for you, and then adapt your game plan accordingly.
Yep. So again, nip it straight away, and then that's irrelevant of whichever grade you've got, whatever division you've got. And if you've got people who are going to have a long sort of journey in competitions, if they learn that straight away at yellow belt, as soon as they come in there and they realize that actually the referee is in control of their safety, they potentially will learn more about their skill element rather than just brute force to get the point.
Sure. What's just thinking back through your refereeing career then, Andy, have you got any stories that stick out?
And
I'll put you on the spot here a bit.
You have. It'd be nice. You should have sent me that in a note. I'm sure. No, I can't. No, I mean there's plenty of opportunities for me to say when refereeing at Granby Halls, when we had their World Championships at the Granby Halls, and
91, brilliant, 91.
I have no idea. I've not got a clue. But obviously there we had an awful lot of international attendance there, and the level of contact was very, very high. And I disqualified one gentleman, and he was stood on the side of the ring for the duration of the bout. And at the end of the bout, he told me he was going to kill me and my family because I disqualified him. I'm going, that's nice. That's great. Yeah.
Was he? I take it he was a bit pissed off, was he?
He wasn't too happy about the fact. And the fact is, I actually, at the break, because they were two rounds, I did go over and say, look, wind your neck in a bit. You're winning this. This is a mismatch. So I told him and his coach that this was a mismatch. Just wind your neck in. And he didn't. He still just wanted to go out and literally beat the guy up. So I called the corner officials in, because I never take those decisions. I never have done. I'll always call the corner officials in and say, look, I'm going to disqualify this guy, just letting you all know. Okay. And I disqualified him, and he wasn't too happy about it. He wasn't too happy about it at all. But it was a privilege of, let's say, refereeing Warren. Okay, I'll just use Warren in there. When Warren knew that he was didn't even have to try, and I would say he just danced with his competitor, and I didn't have to do a thing. Mm-hmm. That's a joy, is when you actually don't really have to, hey Joe, stop, reset, go again. And you don't have to do anything. And
I think that's the mark of a good fighter, isn't it?
Yeah.
Understanding when they're on top. Ultimately, if you're going half a leather on someone that you're absolutely dominating, you're wasting your effort. You're wasting your time. Yeah. You're not going to change the outcome.
Very much so. Yeah. Very much so. Very much so.
Just going back a bit, Andy. So you talked about that guy that basically said to you he wanted to kill you and your family. Just talking about, I suppose, competitions in general, because obviously we're all part of the TAGB, we have been for many, many years. And, when you look at how well run the competitions are, and those sort of problems or confrontations, you just don't really see it in TAGB competitions, where if you go across to some of the open karate competitions and the kickboxing, certainly back in the sort of late 80s, early 90s, those sort of kickoffs happened all the time. And they did. And they literally, quite often there were two refs from one side or a coach from one side getting up. And why do you think that is? Why do you think the TAB just doesn't have that?
I have no idea. Obviously, doing the European circuit, going across, obviously there was a team of us. There was me, my wife, there was Mark Farnham, Tony Littlejohns, and that's just to name just this little handful of people. We'd go across and we'd be the TAGB officials. over there, and you could actually see it. You could actually see it a mile off to these people who, it was almost as if they had to win because potentially someone spent some money on them. They've invested them in their club, or they've got sponsorship, and them coming away without a trophy was failure.
Sure.
You know, it wasn't about, oh, well done, Billy, you took part. It's, what do you mean you lost? And there's a element of emotion. I mean, one of them, going back, we did it in Dortmund in Germany, and I actually think it was Errol Morgan was the referee, and he disqualified somebody, and the guy ripped his shirt off and went for Errol. And I don't even quote me. You're going to put this online. It might be, it might not have been Errol.
You're quoting yourself.
I know. Shush. Stop that. But it just kicked off. You know, ripping shirts off, facing off with the referee. And you're right. It doesn't happen here. It doesn't happen in what we do. And I think that might be the respect that we instill in the process that we have. You know, you're going to do a grading. This is the process. You're going to do a competition. This is the process.
Yeah.
And we get educated about it, you know.
And
so I don't know why it is.
It comes down to that family thing as well, doesn't it? Like we talked about at the beginning.
It is. I agree. You know, we have all got so many friends within Taekwondo who are either in the TAGB or no longer in the TAGB or wherever they are. But yeah, we all regard these people as family. Now, obviously, I do actually say and relate to my family being a Taekwondo family, in the fact that we run our clubs as a family. My group of instructors I regard as family. And then the students who have come in, they see that family. And then our student base is families. So if you were just to look at my wife's club in Malmesbury, it's families. You know, there's 4 or 5 people from the same family all training. You know, and it's just brilliant. But that does flow out, then go to the competitions, and you get the families go to the competition. And you even got the gradings. They'll go to a grading, even though one student's grading, they'll go to the grading as a family.
Yeah. I think, I mean, my club's very similar. It's built around families. So, so when did you become a full-time instructor, Andy? When did you sort of take that plunge and say, right, now's the time? You know, this is the sport I love. This is what I want to do full-time. And sort of said, right, I'm going for it.
So I would have been, so like I said earlier, I'm an engineer by trade. And so I would have been about 24, 25. So that's when I basically stopped sticking wires in control panels and stuff like that, and said, no, I'm doing this. This is what I love. This is what I'm going to do. So about 24, 25 years old.
And how was that transition? You know, from being a electrical engineer into the realms of a Taekwondo instructor.
Best back then, the best thing I ever did. You know, it was a no-brainer. Didn't even think about it. It wasn't even like, should I do it? Sit down and work it out. And I thought, no, boom, this is what I'm going to do. This is what I love doing. And I had back then, I think I had 2 clubs. I had 2 clubs at the time. And as soon as I made that decision, I opened my 3rd. I've got 4 clubs in. We as a family have 5 schools. So back then it was just 2-3 clubs, and just took off. It just took off. You know, the kids loved it.
So you already had your clubs running part-time before you took that plunge, presumably. Yeah. Which is the sensible approach, isn't it? For sure.
Well, I was actually a terrible engineer. Okay, I was really good at being an engineer, but nobody really wanted me to be an engineer for their company, for the simple reason that I wanted to finish work at 2:00 in the afternoon, so that if I could finish then, I could actually get home, sort my bits and pieces out, and then start teaching at 4 or 5 o'clock in the evening. You know, and that's what I wanted to do. So when I go in and hand your notice in and say, look, I'm not going to, oh, okay, never mind. That's all right.
We'll take that off you. Snatched out your hand.
Yeah. No, seriously, it was literally like that. I was, I never did any overtime. I didn't do any commissioning work. I used to hand it out to all other engineers. They loved me because if there was overtime to be done, I'd give it to someone else because I wanted to teach. So it was something that was it was a no-brainer for me. It was a no-brainer. So.
All the best people left jobs as electrical engineers to become Taekwondo instructors. That was me. That was me as well. I was electronic engineer.
Read the same book, yeah.
Yeah.
So it was good. It was it was great. And again, that was obviously a long time ago, and things have changed. Lots of things have changed. Goes back from I teach. Master Jew asked me to teach on the instructors course. And I teach about the management, club management and stuff like that. And it was back in the day where you used to turn up and put your money in a tin.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
and there was no paperwork. There was no paperwork. You didn't take a register. You didn't do any of that. But that was obviously, so now everything's completely changed. Obviously for the better.
Yeah, well, you think about those old school instructors that still were collecting money in a tin, even to the point before COVID hit. All of a sudden, COVID hit, boom, their businesses disappeared overnight.
Yeah.
And I think if that's a lesson for anybody, to sort of get with technology and get with systems, because me and Jackie, we talk about on the podcast a lot. We're really into our systems, and we don't believe in doing admin, and that should be down to someone else. Your job is to turn up and teach, because that's the you're the only one that can teach like you, so you should be doing that. You shouldn't be spending your days doing paperwork and everything else. That should be farmed out to someone who's better than doing it than you.
Yeah, or what you do is you get all your paperwork automated.
Yeah.
Or
give it to your wife to do.
No, that doesn't happen in this age. Okay, it's like this battle against when you have another senior instructor in the same house. Irrelevant. I've got more bars on. That rule doesn't count. Okay, I can walk around the house with my belt on. It doesn't work in this house in any way, shape, or form.
Obviously, your clubs are very successful. So just talk us around some of the successes that you've had with some of your students then. I know you've got some great fighters, some great technicians. So just give us a bit of name dropping and talk us around some of their achievement that you've helped them to reach.
Well, I've got plenty of students who have obviously they are the ones who would turn up to compete. They'll turn up to every single tournament, but there are technically only 2 students who have actually made the what's the 3? I lied, 3, because I'll get beaten with a large stick. Okay. My oldest one would have been Debbie Hill.
Okay, yeah.
Okay. So
now martial artist, very successful fighter.
Oh yeah. And she's producing her own students there who are all competitive as well. So Debbie in the very, very early days. Obviously Debbie's now retired. I've got Brad, my eldest son.
Great technician.
So, well, he's teaching now. He's doing all the online teaching with us. He does his twice a week fitness thing, which is attracting 70, 80 people for every single session, just for his fitness thing. But obviously Brad, and now Bregan on my our youngest one, which I know you've refereed on many an occasion there at our tournaments. So going through there are plenty of students who would turn up at a tournament. Jackie, my wife Jackie's got young Martha, who has just taken the bug. She's only a youngster. She turned up at her first World Championships. And I think where we're traditionalists, we really do push the patterns. Mm-hmm. So, we've just finished our online patterns competition, ready for you to give us the details of what you want. And Jackie had about 14 of her students that placed, so they're all doing really, really well, and they can't wait for us to be able to get back to a proper competition where it's not a screen in front of us.
Yeah, sure.
So within that, obviously I use the word family all the time. Jackie, my wife, was an exceptionally good competitor in her colour belt days, but again, she did exactly the same as me. They got herself a black belt, and then all of a sudden officiated, took the bug, and it was like boom, and which is, in my opinion, damn sight better than me, because I think I'm coming out the other end of it. And the officiating side is absolutely brilliant. So they've all my family have all come through competitors tournaments and winning. Even Megan, our middle child, so she's come through. I'm the only one who actually won nothing. I've actually won nothing. They've all got grading awards, okay, and won competitions and championships, and I've won nothing. That's why I'm a referee, guys. That's what it is. it's the closest I'm going to get to winning, I suppose.
I think I wouldn't say even won nothing. It's certainly a victory when you're the coach of such successful students. Yeah, and that, that's quite a unique skill to be able to translate your passion and your ability to do things, and then take that to impart that onto somebody else. That's a real win-win.
Yeah, anybody that has the opportunity to stand in front of a class, have the privilege to stand in front of a class and teach, they would not disagree with that statement. It is great feeling to see your students being successful. Irrelevant whether it just be in a technique, in completing the pattern, doing the grading, attending a competition. It is a great.
They're all huge milestones, which I love watching students travel that journey. From the timid individual that's nervous to come into a class, to feel comfortable in that environment. Then you push them into that grading, and they're struggling. They overcome that fear, that nervousness, and they progress. Then you push them into a competition. Each time you're developing them step by step, and as an individual, you can see them grow. To me, that's the greatest reward for martial arts. Yeah. And you're using all those different platforms to be able to achieve that.
Well, unfortunately or fortunately for me, that was one of my key stories to when parents bring their kids, or even sort of like, I'm a bit nervous. I don't really want to do it. And then I turn and I say, right, you see the big guy over there? And I point to Brad, and anybody that knows Brad, my son, knows how good he is. And he's a gifted individual in Taekwondo. And I tell them the story that when he did his first lesson, he cried. Yeah. Now, when I say he cried for the whole hour. Okay. Now this is
he's Brad, not going to like hearing that story, is he?
Yeah, I tell everybody it.
Yeah, we'll make sure we get that clip out. We'll get that clip out as quick as we can.
That's the cracking one, okay? But the change in confidence for anybody, it was like, and then those people, and I tell everybody about that, Brad, and he's going, yeah, Dad, thanks. Remember, I said, you can't fight me, son, I've retired. He said, Dad, you never started. I said, this is true. But it is the truth. And I use that story all the time because they look at him now and they see his ability and they say, what? Is this same guy that was 4 years old and the confidence level wasn't there? And then you see, obviously for me, not just being his dad, but being his instructor, the pride is unbelievable. But that's obviously my son. The same pride is there when it's this little lad who won't let go of mum's leg and say, come on, have a go. And next thing you know, he's in there. See you later, bye, he's gone. And the mum is beaming because they say, here we go. It's a great feeling, It
is, and you can't beat it. And it's only something you experience when you've traveled that road, isn't it?
Yeah, no, it is. Yeah, very much so. Very much so. I mean, again, just on a personal note, again, I always use this family thing, and I'm always promoting family. Obviously being a Taekwondo family, and Megan, my middle daughter, who's now an NHS doctor, she's still an active part of Taekwondo. Okay, she runs the medic team for the TAGB. The last tournament we had, it was Megan has to sort that out. So she has to, it is this whole thing. And people often say, is this Taekwondo, this family? And they don't get it. Unless you're part of it, you don't get it.
No. I mean, same as you. I mean, I've got loads of families in my club, and you just see them, and you see them stick together through thick and thin, just like what you said. There might be one member of the family grading, and the whole family comes to watch them. Yeah, and it's just it's difficult to put it into words. The benefits that family gets from doing those things together. I mean, me, Jackie, and yourself, we've all We've all been there. All of our kids have done Taekwondo at some point. Both my two got their black belt, you know, or Jackie's kids, you know, got their black belts. You got the black belt, and you see them change from, you know, over time to these, like I say, little snotty-nosed little kids who don't know their lefts and rights to being proud black belts who you feel confident, you know, when they're at school, can look after themselves in secondary school and be confident and being able to help out other people as well. And, you know, it's that whole journey. There's so much good that comes from it, isn't there?
Well, yes. Yeah. I mean, the amount of people that, I mean, you guys, I'm telling you guys this, you've had that red belt or that first cut, the red belt, black stripe. He says, I don't want to do it anymore. I don't want to do it anymore. So look, just get your black belt. Draw a line in the sand there. And, you know, if you want to stop, but achieve your black belt first, because it looks so much nicer on a CV saying that you actually train for X amount of years to get your black belt. You know, someone said, oh, I'm a red belt. What's that? What is it? What is a red belt? How far is that? Is that high? Is it low? You know, it's unless you're a member of the club, you don't understand.
Yeah, that's one of my lines as well. I would say, you know, say exactly the same thing. If you go to an employer and you've got a black belt on your CV, it shows that employer straight away that you can stick at something.
Correct.
And you can stick, and you can go, and you can achieve it through thick and thin. And straight away, that's a plus point. If you're there against another 20 or 30 or even 100 applicants, and sometimes it's just a talking point, isn't it? You know, because the chances are, I mean, you know how many people have done martial arts. How many times have you had people come into your club saying, "Oh, I used to do this," or "I got to a yellow belt," or "I used to do this." It seems like the whole world used to do martial arts at some point.
Everybody has. I mean, one thing, Megan, when she went to her interview to get into medical school, so obviously academically she was a genius. Okay, A star, this, you name it, whatever. On her interview, they asked her about Taekwondo because she was going to be a doctor. They wanted to know what did she do to release stress.
Sure.
You know, I teach Taekwondo. I teach a kids class. I train in this. And it was almost like, we know that you're good enough to be a doctor, but when you're here, this is going to be an awful lot of hard work. That's all they were interested in. Obviously not in full. There was obviously other bits and pieces, but it was like, really? And we use that when people say, look, you know, he's going to university. Make sure you put that on your documentation, that you've trained for 4 or 5 years, because, you know, it's all good for you. It's all good.
Okay, then, Andy, just one of the things I'm keen to understand. You've also been in the martial arts game a long, long time. What keeps you motivated?
Family. You hear me? I bore the hell out of everybody. It is family. If this was just me doing this, and my wife didn't do it, and my kids didn't do it, I would find this. I feel now, after nearly 40 years, I think it would be so hard. I mean, again, you look at this. This is my training hall. This is where we're living during COVID. My wife hates it because I'm talking to you now on our dining table. So I've got the Mac out here. I've got the lighting. I've got everything, you name it. And we've got another breakout room in the front living room. My wife wants her house back. That's all she wants. She is the most house proud woman you could ever know. And she just wants her house back. But this without my family would be impossible.
I think you should keep it. I think you should keep it like that, mate. I think when we go back to normal, you should keep it set up.
Okay. Do you mind if I give you my wife's number? You can say you can.
Well, hopefully, because we're going to have her on next, and
right.
and hear all the contradicting stories.
Look at that one. That would be a good day. That would be a good day. I'm going to sit in the corner. I'm going to be like that.
Okay. So we're going to wrap up now then, Andy, because we're hitting the 45-minute mark. But the final question we always ask our interviewees: what advice would you give now to a younger you, an 18, 16-year-old you, about your martial arts journey? What advice would you give them?
Backup plan, because you don't know what's around the corner. This has been so hard for all of us. You know, we have all, so since last March, we've had conversations. Obviously, I was kindly invited to do the 7 masters in 7 days. I have some of my instructors who have not had the ability. Their club has not been able to run. Fortunately enough, I've invited them over to me. So I'm keeping them going, keeping their students in the loop. But that's their backup plan. So to have a backup plan, have something there that you can fall back on, unless you know for fact, you know, I mean, I'm in sports centres. I'm in some of the best sports centres here in the southwest of England, and I'm a part of a team of instructors in the southwest of England that, again, I call family, you know, but I would always say to a younger me, make sure there's a backup plan. Because when I started Taekwondo and teaching, there was only one in Chippenham, where I live. There was 2 martial art clubs. There was a judo club and a karate club. And then there's the Taekwondo club. Now in Chippenham, there are 11 Taekwondo clubs.
Yeah.
Chippenham's not that big.
Yeah.
You know, so it's a matter of making sure that you've got a plan and you stick to it, and basically make sure, if you're going to throw all your eggs in one basket, you've got to have that backup plan to make sure that if it's going to be a full-time profession, that you can sustain it. Okay, I've been doing this a long time. My wife and I have got successful clubs, and we've got a very good student base. And over lockdown, we have really, really provided for the students, and we've provided a lot more than they would normally get, but they deserve what we've given them. So that's the thing. Even today, you know, since 5 o'clock till 8 o'clock training, where normally it would actually be a one hour family lesson in, where would I be tonight? It's Wednesday. So in Frome, I had a 1 hour family lesson, 4 instructors, big family lesson.
Yeah. It's just keep giving that extra value, isn't it? Okay. Yes, we're in a lockdown, but you can still give a lot of value to your students. And I totally agree with what you've said. And it's something that I suppose I felt quite exposed probably about 4 years ago, before this time, when I realised, I sort of woke up one day and thought, actually, you know what? You know, I'm the main breadwinner in the house, and I'm making the living from teaching martial arts. But what happens if something happens to me? What happens if I get injured? What happens if I can't do it anymore? You know, I haven't got the instructors built up to that point yet. I haven't got enough black belts that could really support it. And it was around about that sort of time, you know, me and Jackson had quite a lot of conversations about, you know, building up multiple streams of income, I suppose is the way to say it, is that have different revenue streams, even if it's just a little trickle of something coming in from something other than what you do, your main profession. Because, you know, there's been so, like you said, there's been so many instructors that have just been hit so hard, boom, and their income has just been shut off, you know. And it's a tragedy, you know, for some people.
Well, we are very fortunate, and again, we go back on this. That, I mean, we've got our youngest, Bregan. She's a fully qualified instructor. She's got her qualifications. She's at university studying to be a primary school teacher, and she's teaching her classes from behind me, and it's a privilege. I mean, Bregan's not my student; she's actually my wife's student. So, but it's a privilege to see that new generation, and she's hungry to teach.
Yeah,
she is so hungry to teach, and people like Brad come in and they teach, and it's fresh, and it's new, and it's a pleasure to watch. And again, I've just got in the background on my screen here, I've got messages coming in from some instructors who want to speak to me. They're young instructors, first and second dan instructors who maybe been teaching for maybe 2-3 years. And they're so excited about getting going. Yeah. So it's, you know, it's a privilege, and it's nice to see these guys coming through.
No, great, and it's been a privilege having you on the podcast this evening. I'm looking forward to your episode going out. So thank you very much for taking time out to talk to us. It's been a real insight. Okay. It really has.
Yeah, thanks, Andy.
Guys. Cheers, mate. Thank you.
Yeah, see you soon. Take care. Bye-bye.
Take care. Thank you.
I hope you all enjoyed this week's episode of the Motivated Martial Artist podcast. Don't forget to check out our Facebook page and our Facebook group, the Motivated Martial Artist podcast.
And don't forget also the Motivated Martial Artist Instagram page.
So head along for some extra content, interviews and much more.
So until next week, it's bye from Jackson
and Gavin,
the Motivated Martial Artists.